Okay, hi tubers, hi friends, nice to see you again. Well, I can't see you, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I just finished this portrait. It's a commissioned work. Been working on it for quite a while, and I think it became quite nice. I struggled a lot with the yellows and lighting and a lot of things, but I think it in the end became quite nice. It's hard to see what's inside that eye right now, but it's easier to see it when you see the reality. And it's the same thing. It's a little bit loose, a detail somewhere, and I just kind of keep on doing what I always do. Paint, and yeah, you can see how I build, how I have built everything, the lighting, and you know, I'm quite extreme. I would be the first one to admit it. Yellow for me is basically yellow, and reds are reds, and blues are blues, and I used more the palette from the 1800s. You know what Edvard Munch and the Impressionists used. But I try to paint more. My painting style is more Rembrandt-like and the classics. So it's kind of a mix there. Anyway, it looks more detailed from a distance, but yeah. Anyway, it was a ride. It was difficult to get this right, and I'm very glad the customer is pleased with it, and I'm pleased with it too. So, you know, I can see how it's painted here. It's quite loose, but on a distance you get this holistic feeling, or whatever you would call it. Yeah, so I'll go back here. I do wonder if I'm going to start to stream when I'm painting, so people can ask questions and stuff like that. Might be do it on Twitch and YouTube. So if you have any opinion about that, you may leave a comment, or leave a comment anyway. And remember to share my videos. That's extremely helpful for me. And press the subscription button, and you can also donate if you find my videos useful and that you learn something from them. It doesn't have to be much. It doesn't have to be anything actually, but just a token. Okay. So there will be out more videos, and as I was talking about, I will also start streaming, and I will see how the response will be for that, and maybe I make it into a weekly thing, but we'll see what happens. Okay, again, thanks for watching, and remember sharing, subscribe, and stay cool, because I'm trying to. Yeah, just one thing I wanted to say, and that is that it's actually two paintings in one. I started on one sketch, and then I found out that it doesn't work out, so I just dump it and start all over again. So for once you're gonna see me fail, or feel that I can't continue with something. So that actually happens. Usually I don't show that on the videos or stuff, because I only take short bursts of, or 20 minutes or something like that at a time, but actually shit happens to me also, actually all the time. So here I am in a new studio. I'm gonna start this painting. The first one in this studio. It's a huge one. Stretches all over the place. Got a lower roof here, and brought with me my own doors. And haven't finished it yet, but here's the studio for big paintings. And when I'll clean this up, it's gonna be still lifes and maybe drawings and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to start on this commissioned work of this boy. He's a football enthusiast, as you can see, and I'm going to paint it on this canvas. I'm going to make a quite short video of the process. Do the same thing that I always do. Try to be the best copy machine I can possibly be and bring in my subjective self into the paint. Yeah, that is what you get when you paint a photograph. You actually bring it into, I should say, the subjective sphere. Yeah. Okay, so let's get started. So, lighting might be a problem here, but to change it a little bit. So, measuring 1, 2, and a little bit. Like 1, 2. To get it right the first time, so sketch is the most important part. One of the most important parts. So just have to place it like it has a hat on, so I guess I have to get it in the right spot. And like this. Yep. There is one. Let's see. Probably a little bit bigger. painting for quite a while now, weeks, because of the moving, and it's strange to get back into it. I think it's gonna not take much time. I think also I have to do something with this lighting, maybe have it that way instead to get more. The problem here is the roof is that high up, so the spreading on the light isn't that good. But then again, I want to paint the floor white, so it kind of brings the lighting from the floor up, and move this lighting around a little bit so I can find the right lighting. It's going to be easier in the other rooms because it's like 3 plus something meters high. So I don't use any projectors or anything, I just do it on freehand. So of course it can never be a perfect copy of the photo, and that's a good thing, because I think the paintings done with projectors are too static. You also lose much of the correcting brush strokes and stuff like that. So, yeah. Anyway, this video is not going to be 3 hours, so just guess I have to see. I just placing it like this, roughly, just trying to get it right, and then I keep on working. Okay. In the documentary Tim's Valmer, he is making this device to take motifs to the canvas. I don't agree with his theory, but it's quite impressive to see how he does it. For me, it's just standing here, looking, trying to get it the most correct that I can, and keep on correcting things as I go along, which leads to this building up of texture and physical presence of the motif on the canvas. What I also do is that I just measure 1, 2, maybe a half, and it's like 1, 2, almost a half, and I just keep on molding it until it looks like the photograph. Strange, because I don't really know how I do it. I just start. I have a friend who uses a lot of rules, but and the stuff he does is brilliant, but it's not my way. I haven't got the patience for it. Cutting the canvas up in lines and stuff. It's not me. I like it to be more direct. Like I can see there's something wrong there. I just go in with some some white, and I kind of correct it to get it into place using the background to build it. Like here, using the background, then this comes here, starting to focus on the distance between that line and this eye, like here maybe, something like that, and it goes, yeah, approximately here. Then comes the arm here, scarf, shoulder here. And of course I do a lot of mistakes as I go along, and I just correct it. And that is what I think gives the painting, the more you paint, the more subjective it becomes, the more texture, the more life you give to the color. So I guess that's the point. That's the challenge. That's what I love to do. And I also used to do more models, but I haven't done that lately. And I do a lot of still lifes. Used to do self-portraits. I should start doing that again. Yeah. It's hard for me to stand here and talk and paint at the same time, so people ask me questions about stuff, how I do this and how I do that, what kind of oils I use, and that is 70% turpentine and 30% cooked linseed oil, not a raw one, will never dry. Never will dry very slowly. So it's all about texture, all about molding the colors as it is clay. That is what the old masters did. Anyway, yeah, enough for now. So the first strokes are starting to fall into place. And I think the placement on the canvas is quite right, so just to start to fill in. It's very important to get a sketch like this on the right spot on the canvas. If not, you're gonna, maybe a hand will come outside because it's too big, or something happens and you're basically fucked, and that's not a good feeling. So try to get it right the first time, especially the most important parts. And then you just keep on going. I've gotten a lot of questions about what kind of pencils I use. And I use the Swine Bust. This is Da Vinci. They call them quite cheap but good. They have a nice kind of, they are not so stiff, so they move. It's easy to get some kind of dynamic strokes. If you use flat pencils, synthetic pencils, it becomes quite flat and stiff after a while. I like the brush strokes, that you can see the brush strokes, and that you can vary them. different pressures and motions and yeah, stuff like that. So. Of course, when I'm not filming, the painting process becomes more dynamic. See. Out so you can see. You can see here that the strokes are very rough, and I keep it like clay in a way, so keep it open. Perfection comes later, to put it that way. Yeah. This one is going to be here. I'm observing the whole thing in different pieces. Always trying to go back and correct it. It's like, because humans are actually seeing the world. We're not seeing the whole picture all the time. The brain can't take in everything, so it's choosing and interpreting the reality all the time. That's why it's so easy to get it wrong. You have to go back and correct things all the time. Yeah. Sometimes it's quite heartbreaking to have, when you've done a quite nice sketch, think, oh, almost be a finished painting. And it's quite heartbreaking to tear it to pieces. But if you never do that, you will never actually become a better painter. You will be stuck on the level of the sketches. And I see a lot of painters do that, and they don't push themselves any further. I think it's very important to make it hard for yourself, and experiencing the horrible feeling of not being able to reach your goals. That you always are like running after yourself when it comes down to skills. There's also the challenge. So. I do try to answer all questions on YouTube, but it's not always I see them, or I try my best. So. It's nice that people get something out of it. Anyway, that's it. Now the eye is there and the hand is there, so I have to look like this. Okay, eye, hand. So I just put down distance hat, hand, so over here, so there, there. So just put down a mark for that, and that's how I build piece by piece. You can see it in the other videos too. I'm just trying to explain for those who wonder about this. Really having a fight with the lighting in this new studio, because there are two other big rooms that I will paint bigger paintings in. But here I really have to get the lighting right, because I've had the same studio for over 20 years, and 20 years. And when you move to a new studio, you have to adjust a lot of habits, and also the lighting, how it affects the colors. Well, this room is white, and I'm going to paint the floor white to get more reflection of light, so it will be more light than in my other big studio, because there was an old wooden floor that absorbed a lot of light. Here I can see I get a little bit more, I see the colors a little bit better, but I don't see the depth as good as in the last studio. But I mean, I'll probably get used to it. So. Okay, yeah. Yep. As I said, this is going to be a shorter video. Actually, there was a father of a kid who asked me to make this video, so I'm actually making it. Probably gonna be fun to watch for his son. Let's see. When I'm sketching, it's like I'm just the first layer of color, I'm just trying to get the motif onto the canvas quite open, so I can see where I'm going to start molding it. And it's quite a fun process, because it's loose and I don't have to worry, especially around in the room. It doesn't matter if I do any big mistakes, just correct them. Or just let it be, because it's going to look the same anyway. As I said, I do like to get it quite correct, but I'm not trying to copy it exactly. It's like if you actually took a projector of this photograph and you projected it onto the canvas when I was finished with the painting, you really would see that it didn't look the same. People tell me that I paint very photographically, but I don't really agree, because of course, if you paint from a photograph, of course it would look like the photograph, or at least a little bit like a photograph. Or, yeah. And as I said before, that's not goal. Goal is to paint yourself. Painting is like being on the dance floor for hours. And I love being on the dance floor. I always love to dance and always love to move around. Training, martial arts. And I love doing things. I can't sit still. It's not me. I hate it. If I'm going to sit still, I have to have a movie in front of me or something to look at. And I'm never bored. I have too much to do to be bored. I don't even understand what boredom means, because it's just too much to do in this short blip of a lifetime. Yeah, higher. There, that's wrong. See? So that's how I do it. And boom. Probably said it before, but my mother always tells me that I'm giving away things for free. And anyway, but why not? Why do we always have to be on the receiving side? I mean, giving gives a good feeling. It gives some sense of purpose. I mean, painting is basically just a big ego trip. So it's me. But I like to see that other people are here, or be told that other people get something out of it. And actually, people tell me that I have solved problems for them just by looking at my videos. It makes me happy. Actually, when I'm turning off this video, I always put on some music. I always paint with music on, unless I go really deep and just forget to put it on. If I get into problems with details, or silence can be a good tool. Well, usually it's I have music on, and it can be everything from ordinary pop music to trance to Rammstein to classic. I like everything that has some, shall we say, a boot, Wellington boot, as Christopher Hitchens said. kicks a little bit of ass. That's the kind of music I like. Yes. Okay, now we get the idea. Okay. Yeah, this is kind of a moment of truth for me. I was going to paint this, but it's too flat. It doesn't have any contrast. I haven't anything to work with. So I have decided to go for this portrait instead and just paint over the other one, because it's more me and more information, more to work with. It's a much nicer portrait and it will become a much nicer painting. So, and I took it with my Pentax camera with the tungsten film, and becomes more like what I usually do. So I will paint over this one and start over again. Yeah. So there we go. What I do now is just some of the color, some pencil to over it. There's some work that goes to waste, but I mean, in the end, I have to live with the painting I paint. So. Then do just like this, turn it upside down. With this, I actually start to like it a little bit. Anyway, maybe I should do it. Nah. This one is better. So, do the same thing again. One, a little bit. 1, 2. Not pretty, but almost. So, to find the right spot. Find the right spot for it. And do it all over again. It feels better. I mean, if you actually see that you start to dislike something, it's not really constructive to keep on working with it. But if the reason is that you stop because it's hard, that is a cop-out. Don't do that. I just didn't have enough information in the photograph to make it into something I would call a good painting. Because I actually took that other photo with a mobile telephone just as a test. And it didn't, kind of superficially looked like a nice picture, but photo, but wasn't a photo I could actually use to paint a good painting. I could actually paint it. That wouldn't be a problem, but I don't think I would have liked it. And if one is going to create some quality, I think you have to like what you do. Yep. Cheek. Add more shadows, I can build more the 3D effects that I like. May have to do some more scanning to get more of the things in the shadows, but that I can do later. I don't need that now. Just need to use that. That was one, that's not right. One. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Wrong. Wrong. Further down. I have to concentrate. When I use copyrighted material in my videos, other people earn some money. It's quite fun. But then again, I don't make videos to make money. Like it. Yeah. Fuck. 1, 2. Okay, I have to concentrate. So, just want to get some control over the first sketch. I needed to concentrate. So, Here it is. Start. Take 2. I have got it quite right. One there and a little bit. One and a little bit. 1, 2, and yeah. So then it's just to start putting in the light parts, building it. I have more to work with here, more textures, more light, more shadows, more different colors, more depth, more to build a sculpture with, because that is what it actually is. When I build around here, you will see thick colors, thin, thick, thin, you know, just molding it into it's almost like a sculpture. Anyway, I have a meeting at 2. Now I think it's almost 8:30 in the morning, and I should be asleep for a long time ago. That is how it is to be an artist, or be me. I don't know how it is to be an artist, just know how it is to be me. I always have a problem getting myself into bed. When I start doing stuff, I become like that rabbit in a Duracell commercial for batteries. Just keep on going until there is no more left. Anyway. So I just continue this tomorrow or today, or depends how you look at it. So I will see the same thing again, just build, and build with strokes. I don't draw much, I'm going to start drawing more. So, yeah. I think the proportions are okay, can be a little bit broader. But all this shit I will start molding. Yeah, okay. Good morning and good night. Yep. This sketch is getting better. I think there's much more to work with. All the shadows and stuff. And I really like the way I painted this, because it's quite rough, following directions in paint. And if you can see here, it's like, this is why I love painting. These strokes, all these, I just love it. If you don't understand that, you don't understand painting. This is the first sketch. This is just a crude, rough. It's like the first layer of clay, or whatever you call it. But I really love this. This is why maybe I remember in the beginning when I was painting, I didn't even understand that. I used brushes and I brushed everything out, and everything became very, very, shall we say, flat. But when you start to understand painting, you start to understand that it's all in the strokes and the directions, and it's a bit fun too to work with it, because I have to paint in all the things that are on the scarf and the flag, and it's going to be quite fun. Yeah. Okay. finished with the first crude sketch of the new one. And then I have to start to mold it. So here, just gonna mark the hand. And it's gonna be almost. The first lump of clay. I did one sculpture once, and many times wondered if I'm going to start doing it again, because when you work with clay, you actually kind of feel it in your face when you're molding it. Actually, I have the same experience with paint too. That sometimes when I, especially a self-portrait, when I'm painting it, it's like I touch the canvas and I can feel it in my own face. The brain connects. So maybe I'll start doing that again, both self-portraits and doing works in clay. Could be interesting. I have enough room now. So. Some lights down here. Here. Took me a while to find the right lighting. I think I have found it now. I feel I can see all the colors. It's not too warm, not too cold. If you use only daylight, whatever you call it, if you only use daylight, if you don't move the painting into a room with only warm light, they tend to be too warm. And if you only use warm lights, they tend to be too cold in daylight. So you just have to find some middle ground. I guess it was easier before electricity, because you only saw them in light from oil lamps and daylight, so they didn't get that contrast. Like in Rembrandt's time, before electricity. I've heard I made some skylights. I would like to buy when it becomes cheaper, but right now it's like $62,000 for having a skylight that mimics daylight, so I guess that is a stretch. Too expensive right now, but then again, the price for technology drops quite fast, so I hope I can get it someday. The lighting, just the high places. It's going to be light. I just put the colors on, get some colors into it, get some texture, something that light hits, and if you look at the old masters, that's basically how they did it. So anyway, I'm gonna try to keep this video a little bit short, so I'm gonna stop ranting now. And it's like 7 in the morning. I guess I need to get some sleep soon. I'm meeting with my agent tomorrow, so I have to yeah. Should do it right now. Wow. 30 years with martial arts have given me arthritis. That's fun. Arthritis? That's fun. So when I've been training, I'm limping a little bit. Yeah, so first crude sketch, and I'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Good morning and good night. See? Yeah, good night. So, I have to start breaking down this sketch. It's sad really, because I really like these strokes here, but let me see the wrong colors, but to be able to move on, one has to kill it, and that's always in a way sad, but that's the way it has to go. So yeah. The first layers are always the most easiest, maybe. I want to give you the fastest, the quickest fix, because the results are coming very fast, actually. But when you start to kill your darlings, that's when it starts to get hard. That's what I have to do, because I'm not making a good painting by resorting to the easy way. Time is of the essence. The time you put into it, the numbers of time you touch the surface and the texture you leave behind is crucial to evolve something that in the end has some substance. And I'm trying to build it like a sculpture. Think of the color as clay and just keep on molding. Some more lights. See how the lips goes. The young boy, it's actually commissioned work, and he has a very characteristic face, so gives me a lot to work with. That's a good thing. Cheeks. I never actually think about things as cheeks or eyes or I only think about it as a shape and color. Start thinking too much, you're gonna screw it up. I'm trying to paint the directions I see, trying to find the right way, almost feel it on my own face, understanding. What's in it? It's not easy to concentrate when I have a camera hanging over me like this. there are no lines, there are only shadow and color. So guess that is what I'm trying to achieve. Here comes the air. So see, I'm shaping this with the air and I'm dragging it out. I see a lot of people painting down all the time or not concentrating about the different directions, and that is crucial. As I remember the paint or leaving some physical texture in the canvas, so which sends out light, and the light that hits your retina will then represent the shapes and strokes that actually are in the painting. That is why how you build it is quite important, because you have to build it as it would be in reality, in a way. Not in a way, but yeah, like lights. How far out? Drag it out. Drag it up. And I see it goes kind of down. I kind of do it like this. All this kind of stuff I'm saying all the time. So sometimes I'm trying to make the videos not that long, but it's hard to know when to stop, and then they just keep on growing. So, well, I guess you get the point by now. I can't really teach anyone to paint. You have to do the job yourself. It is like playing the piano. You will not get better unless you buy one and play. So yeah. The lighting in this room is quite difficult to work to take videos of, because the roof is not so high, and I see that it's actually quite difficult to film it right because of the lighting. But I'm going to soon start using the bigger rooms and finish some paintings and some videos I've been working on for quite a while. So it's going to be better, I think. Okay. Just build. It's hard to see in this light again, but I think you get the point. Yeah.
Welcome to the Waking Up Podcast. This is Sam Harris. Okay, well, it is Saturday, November 14th, a day after Paris. And as you all know, at least 129 people were murdered last night by jihadists, probably affiliated with ISIS. ISIS has claimed credit for it. And many hundreds of people were injured, so the death toll will almost certainly rise by the time you've heard this. I hope to get this podcast out tomorrow, Sunday, but anyway, that's where things stand at the moment. And my Twitter feed is just inundated with people wondering what I have to say about this event. And I have nothing new to say. This is a situation I've been in now many times. I sit down to write or in some other way respond to recent events, and I find that I've said this stuff 100 times over. You just have to change the dates and a few of the nouns in a blog post or a lecture, and you find what you've said is totally appropriate to the moment. Now that's depressing because it means we are making the same mistakes over and over again, and the stakes are just getting incrementally higher. So rather than struggle to write something new, I'm going to read an older essay entitled Sleepwalking Toward Armageddon. And I wrote this just a year ago on September 10th, 2014, after the murder of journalist James Foley by Jihadi John, who was killed yesterday, I believe, in a drone strike, or was reported to have been killed. So I will read that and perhaps offer an aside or two on recent events. I'll be speaking with Douglas Murray on Monday. I'm not sure when I'll publish that podcast. Probably might take a week to get that out. But our conversation of this week was preempted by a cold of mine, and which I'm just getting over. So my voice is even less euphonious than it normally is. Sorry for that. I offer this essay because it really is what I'm thinking now. But one thing to keep in mind, as I've been saying for 14 years, this is the big story of our time, and it is an incredibly boring one. Right? Just let the boredom of this just sink into your bones. Realize that for the rest of your life, you're going to be reading and hearing about and otherwise witnessing, hopefully not firsthand, the lunacy and attendant atrocities of jihadists. Please pay attention to the recurrent shrieks of Allahu Akbar. This is the catcall from the Middle Ages, or from Middle Earth, that we will have to live with for the rest of our lives. So this fight against jihadism and Islamism generally, this is a generational fight. This is something we are doing for our children, ultimately, and our children's children. And we have a war of ideas that we have to wage and win. And unfortunately, we have to wage it and win it with ourselves first. And again, this requires an admission that there is such a war of ideas to be waged and won, which is the purpose of my most recent book with Maajid Nawaz. But the balance has to swing. Denying this problem, denying the problem of Islamism, denying that Islam, the religion, has a unique problem at this moment in history. That has to become as unseemly and as reputationally costly as any dangerous expression of bigotry now is. It certainly has to be more costly than an honest discussion of the problem is. People are referring to these events in Paris as a wake-up call. Who on earth at this moment needs a wake-up call? If you didn't wake up on September 12th, 2001, there may be no hope for you. What will it take to get your attention? There are no surprises anymore. We have to relinquish our capacity for surprise here. There is nothing so destructive that these people won't attempt it. The only thing that has prevented them from killing millions of people is a lack of technology, and we have to ensure that they never get it. But the idea that our enemies are sufficiently like ourselves and that they won't set this world on fire is pure delusion. Most of you aren't even comfortable with the word enemy, right? To refer to jihadists as our enemies, somehow that is provocative. We have grown so effete as a civilization as to imagine that we have no enemies, or if we do, they're only of our own making. And when people on the right call them barbarians, well then that is just demagoguery. Those are just our own demons springing into view. You have to get some perspective here. It is not mere wartime propaganda that we will one day look back on with embarrassment to call ISIS a death cult, to call them barbarians, to call them savages, to use dehumanizing language. They are scarcely human in their aspirations. The world they want to build entails the destruction of everything we value and our right to value. And by we, I mean civilized humanity, including all the Muslims who are just as horrified by the Islamist and jihadist project as I am. We have a project that's universal, that transcends culture, that unites everyone who loves art and science and reason generally, who wants to cure disease, who wants to raise each new generation to be more educated than the last. And this common project is under assault. So if you can't get your head straight about that, you think there might be two sides to this war. This is blowback, and we're somehow culpable for it. You have not understood what these people are about. And they have been telling you what they're about ceaselessly. So the problem is with you. Watch some of their videos if you can stomach it. And if you can't stomach it, that should tell you something. And unfortunately, most of us, we have to keep convincing ourselves that evil exists, that not all people want the same things, and that some people are wrong in how they want to live, and in what sort of world they want to build. And if we can't convince ourselves of this once and for all, well then we'll have to wait to be convinced by further acts of savagery of the sort that we just saw in Paris. Why wait? Why not get your head straight now? Again, the situation I most fear is that more and more, with liberals failing to see the dynamics of this problem, there will come a time where the only people who have the moral conviction to oppose this death cult behavior will be nearly as bad as the Islamists themselves. Now I'm speaking of right-wing Christian fascists of some sort. You have to ask yourself, if there was an election in Paris tomorrow, who would you vote for? Right? And if this happens 10 more times in Paris, who will the French vote for? This mass psychological experiment is being run in every country in Europe, and no doubt will be run again in the US at some point. This problem is not going away, and we have to prepare ourselves politically for the reality of what is coming our way. You can only hope that the US government and the British government behind the scenes have been making much more sense than they do in public on this issue. But our stumbling and half-hearted measures are not encouraging. And in response to yesterday's events, President Obama in his statement committed precisely the same sin of omission that I describe in this essay. Nothing has changed. And he has had every opportunity to acknowledge what is actually going on in the world, and he has refused to do it for reasons that no doubt attest to the enormity of the problem. Surely he thinks that if he names this evil as Islamism, or Islamic extremism, or political Islam, he will inspire many more Muslims to believe that the West is at war with Islam, driving them into the arms of the Islamists and jihadists. If tens of millions of Muslims, or hundreds of millions, are so precariously perched on this moral precipice, if they could be so easily toppled into aligning themselves with theocracy, we should be speaking honestly about that problem. So, in response to recent events, I give you my essay, Sleepwalking Toward Armageddon. In his speech responding to the horrific murder of James Foley by a British jihadist, President Obama delivered the following rebuke, using an alternate name for ISIS. ISIL speaks for no religion, and no faith teaches people to massacre innocents. No just God would stand for what they did yesterday, and what they do every single day. ISIL has no ideology of any value to human beings. Their ideology is bankrupt. We will do everything we can to protect our people and the timeless values that we stand for. May God bless and keep Jim's memory, and may God bless the United States of America. In his subsequent remarks outlining a strategy to defeat ISIS, the president declared, "Now let's make two things clear. ISIL is not Islamic. No religion condones the killing of innocents, and the vast majority of ISIL's victims have been Muslim. ISIL is a terrorist organization, pure and simple, and it has no vision other than the slaughter of all who stand in its way. May God bless our troops, and may God bless the United States of America." As an atheist, I cannot help wondering when this scrim of pretense and delusion will be finally burned away, either by the clear light of reason or by a surfeit of horror meted out to innocence by the parties of God. Which will come first, the flying cars and vacations to Mars, or a simple acknowledgement that beliefs guide behavior, and that certain religious ideas, jihad, martyrdom, blasphemy, apostasy, reliably lead to oppression and murder? It may be true that no faith teaches people to massacre innocents, exactly. But innocence, as the president surely knows, is in the eye of the beholder. Are apostates innocent? Blasphemers? Polytheists? Islam has the answer, and the answer is no. More British Muslims have joined the ranks of ISIS than have volunteered to serve in the British armed forces. In fact, this group has managed to attract thousands of recruits from free societies throughout the world to help build a paradise of repression and sectarian slaughter in Syria and Iraq. This is an astonishing phenomenon, and it reveals some very uncomfortable truths about the failures of multiculturalism, the inherent vulnerability of open societies, and the terrifying power of bad ideas. No doubt many enlightened concerns will come flooding into the reader's mind at this point. I would not want to create the impression that most Muslims support ISIS. Nor would I want to give any shelter or inspiration to the hatred of Muslims as people. In drawing a connection between the doctrine of Islam and jihadist violence, I'm talking about ideas and their consequences, not about 1.5 billion nominal Muslims, many of whom do not take their religion very seriously. But a belief in martyrdom, a hatred of infidels, and a commitment to violent jihad are not fringe phenomena in the Muslim world. These preoccupations are supported by the Quran and numerous hadith. That is why the popular Saudi cleric, Muhammad al-Arifi, sounds like the ISIS army chaplain. The man has 9.5 million followers on Twitter, twice as many as Pope Francis has. I just double-checked that, and he now has over 13 million followers, and still twice as many as Pope Francis has. If you can find an important distinction between the faith he preaches and that which motivates the savagery of ISIS, you should probably consult a neurologist. Understanding and criticizing the doctrine of Islam and finding some way to inspire Muslims to reform it is one of the most important challenges the civilized world now faces. But the task isn't as simple as discrediting the false doctrines of Muslim extremists, because most of their views are not false by the light of Scripture. A hatred of infidels is arguably the central message of the Quran. The reality of martyrdom and the sanctity of armed jihad are about as controversial under Islam as the resurrection of Jesus is under Christianity. It is not an accident that millions of Muslims recite the Shahada or make pilgrimage to Mecca. Neither is it an accident that the horrific footage of infidels and apostates being decapitated has become a popular form of pornography throughout the Muslim world. Each of these practices, including this ghastly method of murder, find explicit support in Scripture. Now, I should say as an aside, I just happened to be looking at Twitter today, and someone included one of these images as a particularly hard-hitting and appropriately outraged response to some Islamist apologetics. But, this is an image that I would certainly rather not have seen and can't unsee. And it was of a woman, was described as a Yazidi woman, having her throat cut and bled out into a bowl that was filled with her blood. And she was naked, and this was just as horrible an image as you can imagine. Perhaps you can't imagine. Because the way you have to view an image like this is in the context of a wider understanding that the people who are doing this consider it an act of worship. This is the fulfillment of their norms, not a violation of them. And when these images get circulated among jihadists, they inspire rapturous approval. These are recruitment images, calculated to entice those who also view the world this way, who want to participate in an orgy of bloodletting and violence, and who view the prospect of their own deaths with absolute equanimity because they are certain of paradise. These are the people we're dealing with. These are the people who were on the streets of Paris last night. This is not an ordinary war. And if you can't get your head straight about that, you really can't participate in an intelligent discussion about what's going on here. These are not people motivated by ordinary political or economic or even tribal grievances. The real engine of this violence is religious ideology, sincere belief. That has to be understood. Okay, that was all a digression from my essay. This is back to the text. But there's now a large industry of obfuscation designed to protect Muslims from having to grapple with these truths. Our humanities and social science departments are filled with scholars and pseudo-scholars, deemed to be experts in terrorism, religion, Islamic jurisprudence, anthropology, political science, and other diverse fields, who claim that where Muslim intolerance and violence are concerned, nothing is ever what it seems. Above all, these experts claim that one can't take Islamists and jihadists at their word. Their incessant declarations about God, paradise, martyrdom, and the evils of apostasy are nothing more than a mask concealing their real motivations. What are their real motivations? Insert here the most abject hopes and projections of secular liberalism. How would you feel if Western imperialists and their mapmakers had divided your lands, stolen your oil, and humiliated your proud culture? Devout Muslims merely want what everyone wants: political and economic security, a piece of land to call home, good schools for their children, a little leisure to enjoy the company of friends. Unfortunately, most of my fellow liberals appear to believe this. In fact, to not accept this obscurantism as a deep insight into human nature and immediately avert one's eyes from the teachings of Islam is considered a form of bigotry. In any conversation on this topic, one must continually deploy a firewall of caveats and concessions to irrelevancy. Of course, U.S. foreign policy has problems. Yes, we really must get off oil. No, I didn't support the war in Iraq. Sure, I've read Chomsky. No doubt the Bible contains equally terrible passages. Yes, I heard about the abortion clinic bombing in 1984. No, I'm sorry, Hitler and Stalin were not motivated by atheism. The Tamil Tigers? Yeah, of course, I've heard of them. Now can we honestly talk about the link between belief and behavior? Yes, many Muslims happily ignore the apostasy and blasphemy of their neighbors, view women as the moral equals of men, and consider anti-Semitism contemptible. But there are also Muslims who drink alcohol and eat bacon. All of these persuasions run counter to the explicit teachings of Islam to one degree or another. And just like moderates in every other religion, most moderate Muslims become obscurantists when defending their faith from criticism. They rely on modern secular values, for instance, tolerance of diversity and respect for human rights, as a basis for reinterpreting and ignoring the most despicable parts of their holy books. But they nevertheless demand that we respect the idea of revelation. And this leaves us perpetually vulnerable to more literal readings of Scripture. The idea that any book was inspired by the creator of the universe is poison, intellectually, ethically, and politically. And nowhere is this poison currently doing more harm than in Muslim communities, East and West. Despite all the obvious barbarism in the Old Testament and the dangerous eschatology of the New, it is relatively easy for Jews and Christians to divorce religion from politics and secular ethics. A single line in Matthew, "Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's, largely accounts for why the West isn't still hostage to theocracy. The Quran contains a few lines that could be equally potent. For instance, there's no compulsion in religion, chapter 2, Surah 256. But these sparks of tolerance are easily snuffed out. Transforming Islam into a truly benign faith will require a miracle of reinterpretation, and a few intrepid reformers, such as Majid Nawaz, are doing their best to accomplish it. Many believe it unwise to discuss the link between Islam and the intolerance and violence we see in the Muslim world, fearing that it will increase the perception that the West is at war with the faith and cause millions of otherwise peaceful Muslims to rally to the jihadist cause. I admit that this concern isn't obviously crazy, but it merely attests to the seriousness of the underlying problem. Religion produces a perverse solidarity that we must find some way to undercut. It causes in-group loyalty and out-group hostility, even when members of one's own group are behaving like psychopaths. But it remains taboo in most societies to criticize a person's religious beliefs. Even atheists tend to observe this taboo and enforce it on others, because they believe that religion is necessary for many people. After all, life is difficult, and faith is a balm. Most people imagine that Iron Age philosophy represents the only available vessel for their spiritual hopes and existential concerns. This is an enduring problem for the forces of reason, because the most transformative experiences people have, bliss, devotion, self-transcendence, are currently anchored to the worst parts of culture, and to ways of thinking that merely amplify superstition, self-deception, and conflict. Among all the harms caused by religion at this point in history, this is perhaps the most subtle. Even when it appears beneficial, inspiring people to gather in beautiful buildings to contemplate the mystery of existence and their ethical commitments to one another, religion conveys the message that there is no intellectually defensible and non-sectarian way to do this. But there is. We can build strong communities and enjoy deeply moral and spiritual lives without believing any divisive nonsense about the divine origin of specific books. And it is this misguided respect for revelation that explains why, in response to the starkest conceivable expression of religious fanaticism, President Obama has responded with euphemisms and missiles. This may be the best we can hope for, given the state of our discourse about religion. Perhaps one day we will do, quote, everything we can to protect our people and the timeless values that we stand for. But today, we won't even honestly describe about religion. Perhaps one day we will do, quote, everything we can to protect our people and the timeless values that we stand for. But today, we won't even honestly describe the motivations of our enemies. And in the act of lying to ourselves, we continue to pay lip service to the very delusions that empower them. Okay, so that's where the original essay ended. And forgive me for thinking that it stands as an adequate response to recent events, but I really don't see a word of it that I need to change. Again, I'll be speaking to Douglas Murray soon. As many of you know, Douglas is a truly inspired commentator on this problem. So I look forward to that, and I will get that to you soon. Until then, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, there are several ways you can support it. You can leave reviews on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you happen to listen to it. You can share it on social media with your friends. You can discuss it on your own blog or podcast. Or you can support it directly. And there are two ways you can do this. You can leave a donation through my website at samharris.org/donate. Or you can try a membership at Audible, the world's leading source of audiobooks, at audibletrial.com/Sam Harris.
Welcome to the Patreon.
Yeah. Working with details. The most time-consuming process. Smaller the details are, the more difficult it is. And so easy to fuck it up. Mm-hmm. Just have to kind of slowly link all the colors together so it doesn't become drawn, like it becomes stiff. I can make the colors melt into each other, and it's a very time-consuming process. So many things to get right in a way, because every time when you touch it, you will kind of move something, and like here is too light compared to here. This one comes out, there should be more in. And then you have the shadows, and you have the lights, and you have everything has to kind of fall into the right place. I should be wondering, doing some live streaming. So people can ask questions while I'm painting, interact more. Well, I looks a little bit sick now. This boy has red hair, so his skin is very white, and in the photograph it is kind of reddish. And there is not so many colors to work with, so I have to do it with nuances. Because the picture or the photograph is quite nice, but so we just have to manage to kind of copy the feel of it and keep the 3D effect that I'm after. This is supposed to be painting of the photographs. heard it so many times. Oh, you're that guy who paints all these girls or women. I say, no. I do, okay, I like painting girls, but it's not my main occupation. I do still lives, and I do old men and old women and young girls and young boys and animals and landscapes and still lives. So no, to me it's about the painting, the paint. Yeah. But I do like girls. All of them, maybe. It's kind of the softness. But as an artist, you shouldn't actually use the painting to get laid. That is not the way to go. I don't even like when friends of mine tell me what I do. The first thing some friends of mine do is, oh, he's a painter. Oh, you have to meet him, he's a painter. And I don't really like that, because I want to meet people as me, not as what I do. And if I'm not good enough, you can just fuck off. I don't care. I'm actually starting to like myself. It took many years to start to actually like myself and realize that I was a good person. That kind of deserves the best. But then you can't actually expect that people hand you any freebies, unless they of course want something back. So you have to create your own life, create your own happiness, if that's even possible, in the light of the fact that I'm gonna be dead in 40 years or something, 30, 40 years. On average, I have like 33 years left to live. So that is not much. So I'm gonna use the intervening time to do what I love. So here is more light there, and the lips have to become softer, and just have to of course I have to do something with that eye. A lot of things with that eye, actually. A lot of people they see something that is white and they just put on some white, but it's not how it actually is. And I get that is when you become a better painter, is when you see through that symbolism or the symbols that your brain are making. If you see an eye, you will see a lot of symbols, and you can see it in people who are painting in the beginning, they're kind of always painting or drawing the symbols, not what how it actually is. And that is what you have to break down on to get better. So you don't keep on painting or drawing what you think you see, but what you actually see. Now this camera the lighting in it is not so good, so you're not really getting the right colors in the movies, in the videos, but you might get something out of it. So what do I get out of it? I don't know, attention, compliments, actually that people learn something from it, gives me a bang in a way. It's nice to think that people can learn something from what I do. It's basically the only thing I can do, except from the taekwondo and thinking. So this is kind of like my contribution to humanity. It's not much. Every drop contributes to create an ocean, so I guess. Yeah. Okay. Well, this also. Well, it's coming along slowly. Sometimes when you're getting into the real details, the deep details, and you haven't finished things around, it can actually be disturbing. So sometimes it's better to finish the things that are around the details you are struggling with, so you can kind of step out of it a little bit and focus on the difficult parts. Yeah. Clean up the room in a way. There's no light in that eye. Almost no light. So if you can actually see the pupils, it's easier. But then again, it doesn't matter, you can actually get it to look alive anyway, because it's actually the structure around the face that explains the emotions. I felt that this photo I'm working with actually catched a real moment. He really looks at me. So It's not too much, not too little. Okay. Well, small way to be very. So, if I close in a little bit, I might be able to see. It's not a good camera, so I should buy a new one. You can see here how the lighting in this room is quite difficult to work with because it's not so high. The roof, I have to find out, so it's too much. The light is too close to me, so I should find a way to get it to calm down a little bit. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. It's also goddamn red. You see? Poof, and then it's wrong. I guess you don't see. No, I don't. I was doing something with a nose there, but it's a nice little line. Going like that. What I try to do is kind of, instead of dragging a line, I'm trying to kind of drag it down like this to make it more natural. I don't make a line, I go with the directions and color. And I go back over it to not to mess it up. Here too, I have to kind of make this physical. Yeah. And then I kind of start marking. Remember, it isn't a line. Actually, it is two pieces of skin meeting each other and making a microscopic canyon. I'm not so good at English, so I just have to do the best I can so you can picture what I mean. Don't make lines, there are no lines. And if you do, it's only to sketch it. Because you have to break it down to make it right anyway. Lines feels fake. They don't feel real. And if you watch the old masters like Rembrandt, he didn't use lines, he only used color to kind of mold it. Probably said that 100 times by now. You see it going up again. I'm not going to finish this now. It's much easier for me to paint when I'm not talking, because then I'm only focused on paint. So most of the painting I do when you don't look. But it's the same process. So. Well, it's almost 6 in the morning and I need to get some sleep because I'm going to start a totally new life and get out of my bed 12 in the morning instead of 7 in the evening. Well, a little bit closer. As long as it moves in the right direction, I'm kind of pleased with it. Some hair on his hat. And I guess that line goes more straight up. Yeah. Okay, and I quit for tonight. So, yes. going deeper into detail. So it's getting hard. I think the eye is a little bit too big. And I might have to do something with that. So like this. Well, I have to really concentrate when I'm doing that. Eyes are always difficult. You kind of have to find the right level. And yeah, the right shadows, the right lines, the right. It's really difficult. Kind of first make a line and then I kind of dissolve it afterward. But it's sad, it's hard to find the right colors, right hue. In the film. And this one looks more reddish with that camera. And the other one looks more bluish. And I really have no idea how to fix that problem. Maybe I'm going to start to work in my other rooms because the ceiling are higher up and the light isn't coming that brutally down, so I can focus better. So here and start to build. If you hear a sound, it's actually a store upstairs, and it's like 7:30 in the morning, and people are starting to wake up and go to work. So, I guess he's moving around his fruit and vegetables and stuff like that. Anyway, now you see I'm moving. I'm trying to move with shape. You have to understand how a face works. You have to kind of follow the shape and understand how the directions go. You can't. You have to overpaint and overpaint to reach them. To do it in one go wouldn't work. Impressionism looks very nice, but it's not that difficult. If you have taught yourself to draw and you have some sense of how the colors work, brush strokes, impressionism becomes an easy task actually. In a way I do Impressionism before I paint over it. So things are actually starting to happen in this painting now. It's been difficult finding the right light, but I think we all want to look good on videos, but I guess I have to lose my 10 kilos first. Which probably will never happen. So, now I'm getting somewhere. If you look at old masters and Rembrandt, you go into these eyes, so you can see it's quite dissolved and there's no real lines. In the paintings he did when he was a young man, there are more lines because he wasn't that into the painting as he was in the end. So yeah, it's starting. I do not have any light in the pupil to use as to enhance it, but it's always a thing around that kind of creates the impression. So just have to get that right, and I think the eyes I wanna feel alive. Yeah. see here. It's a little bit too red, but it's kind of how I build. It's the photograph, and the eye on the dark eye I'm gonna fill in there, give it some more presence. But then again, yeah. Okay, yeah. Oops. Much too red. So, working with some detail. Still have a problem with the eye thing, so I think I have to print out some more to get so I can see the eye and get it in there, or make an impression of it. I guess that is what I have to do. Because it now seems like a hole in the canvas. It's not good enough. You see, what I do is that I work now in directions to build texture. Then I'm kind of linking everything together while painting. Trying to link the shadows into the light, not leaving any lines open. You see what I mean? I just go down the root of the nose with brush back and forth, trying to find the right spots. I do have some problem with the photograph I use, because it kind of looks good on the photograph, but when I look more at it, it's kind of a little bit too reddish, so it doesn't even really leave me with so many colors to work with. But I just have to try to paint what I see. I mean, if it is quite nice in the photograph, it should be able to get it into the painting. The problem, of course, a photograph is a two-dimensional surface. Painting is a three-dimensional surface, and it has physical colors that kind of comes out. I think I'm getting his face right, that it's starting to look like him. And if we can get this right, I think I'll be good. What I also have to do before going further into detail is to do the whole canvas, so I'm not getting confused with the noise from the background. Background noise. It's like the universe. The background noise from the Big Bang. It is a new studio, new lighting. It has been hard to find the right lighting. 2 other rooms, huge, 1 big room behind here. It's maybe gonna be easier because so I'm kind of looking forward to start painting in the other rooms. It's kind of to get the kind of greenish inside in the photograph. There's so many things to get right. I mean, the level. I have a light spot here, but how you have to kind of, can I really see it if I kind of put my eyes together? And no, not really. So what many people do when they paint is that they see this white spot and they kind of think it's as white as the highlights, but it isn't. It is a highlight, a very subtle highlight that hits it right there. That was even too much. And then you have some of the skull features. And as I say, you have to kind of link them together. Don't paint with lines, okay? Unless, of course, it's your goal. The shadows always kind of slide into the light, kind of slides into the slides, but kind of disappears into the dark. Like when that shadows appear. And just have to kind of make it feel natural. The shadows down here are kind of bluish, then some greenish. If there is orange, there is always blue somewhere, and if there is red, there is always green somewhere. You just have to find it. But it's not just that, you have to think about the texture of the skin compared to the texture of the cloth and the clothes, and the hair and the shadows, and it's all different kinds of feelings actually. when a portrait becomes difficult as this, it's also quite hard to start painting on it because it's kind of draining me. Start to lose patience because you can't really find the right way to solve the problems. But there is a cure for that, and it just keep on going. Yeah. There's so many things happening in the face to make an expression. Ah, fuck. See what I mean? So goddamn difficult to find the right colors. People also ask me, oh, it would be so great to be a painter. Oh, I would like to paint like you. You know, it's difficult. It's not something that you don't learn this in a day. For heaven's sake, I'm not finished teaching myself this, and I never will. Okay. Yeah. Now it's lights there, 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 there. And many times you do the mistake, you put on more and more light, and what you actually should do is to push down the shadows. Because the more shadow you have, the more nuances you have, the easier it is to find and to get the light into it. And I want the light to feel like it comes from inside the canvas, not that it seems like the light hits the canvas. If you only use whites or white and black and not much color, that is the feel you will get, feeling you will get from it. That actually the light is coming from the painting, is coming from the outside and hits the painting, and therefore it won't feel natural. So anyway, this is too difficult, so I just need to concentrate without speaking. Hope you get something out of it. Yeah.
Long before Mother Teresa's helicopter touched down at about 11:20 this morning, the crowds were gathering here at Knock.
Among all of you who have made this pilgrimage to Knock this afternoon, we are privileged to have with us as a special guest at this Mass a pilgrim who has come from afar.
From afar.
A woman whose worldwide symbol for goodness and holiness.
Not many claims made by the Irish clergy are widely or uncritically accepted, even in Ireland. But the saintliness of an Albanian nun named Agnes Boiaciu is a proposition that's accepted by many who are not even believers. Mother Teresa herself receives extravagant adulation as no more than her due.
Of all the women in recent history, no one has captured the public imagination like Teresa of Calcutta. I'm not being facetious, and I'm certainly making no comparison when I say that no woman has made such an impact here since Our Lady herself appeared in 1879.
So how did this auction of hyperbole and credulity get started? In that year of grace 1969, the scrupulously neutral and objective British Broadcasting Corporation permitted that old fraud and mountebank Malcolm Muggeridge to pay a devotional visit to the Calcutta Shrine.
Well, when after I met you in London, really the only thing I want to do is to come and see you in your work here, and I've seen it. And of course it's a shining light.
Himself arrogant, almost to the point of humility, Muggeridge became persuaded that he and his team had become the divinely appointed instruments of what he claimed was the first television miracle.
During Something Beautiful for God, there was an episode where we were taken to a building that Mother Teresa called the House of the Dying, and Peter Schaefer, the director, said, well, it's very dark in here, do you think we can get anything? And we had just taken delivery at the BBC of some new film made by Kodak, which we hadn't had time to test before we left, so I said to Peter, well, let's have a go. So we shot it. And when we got back, several weeks later, a month or two later, we're sitting in the Rushes Theatre in the studio, and eventually up came the shots of the House of the Dying. And it was surprising. You could see every detail. And I said, that's amazing, that's extraordinary. And I was going to go on to say, 3 cheers for Kodak. I didn't get a chance to say that. There was Malcolm sitting in the front row, spun around and said, it's divine light. It's Mother Teresa. You'll find that it's divine light, old boy. And 3 or 4 days later, I was being phoned by journalists from London newspapers who were saying things like, we hear you've just come back from India, Martin Muggeridge, and you were the witness of a miracle.
And a star was born. This profane marriage between tawdry media hype and medieval superstition gave birth to an icon which few have since had the poor taste to question.
It's like you're actually seeing a living saint.
Give a man a reputation as an early riser, said Mark Twain, and that man can sleep till noon. How does the reputation of Holy Mother Teresa look if, just for a moment, we switch off Malcolm Muggeridge's kindly light?
Mother Teresa is a Nobel Prize winner. She's a symbol. People in the West talk about her, so Indians adopt her at that level. The fact that what she does in the streets of Calcutta is really irrelevant to them. They couldn't care about it. Most of them don't even know. But Mother Teresa is the sort of figure you show to visitors.
Mother Teresa's flagship institution is her home for the dying, a hospice which purportedly sweetens the last moments of otherwise destitute lives.
My initial impression was of all the photographs and footage I've ever seen of Belsen and places like that, because all the patients had shaved heads. There are no chairs anywhere, there are just these stretcher beds, and they're like First World War stretcher beds. There's no garden, no yard even, no nothing. And I thought, what is this? This is 2 rooms with 50 to 60 men in one, 50 to 60 women in another. They're dying. They're not being given a great deal of medical care. They're not being given painkillers really beyond aspirin and maybe, if you're lucky, some Brufen or something for the sort of pain that goes with terminal cancer and the things that they were dying of. And I thought, what's the point?
Right from the very beginning, I wanted to serve the poor purely for the love of God and to give them what the rich people get with money. I wanted to give to the poor for the love of God.
They didn't have enough drips. The needles they used and reused over and over and over, and you would see some of the nuns rinsing needles under the cold water tap. And I asked one of them why she was doing it. And she said, well, to clean it. And I said, yes, but why are you not sterilising it? Why are you not boiling water and sterilising your needles? She said, there's no point. There's no time.
Mother Teresa's cult of death and suffering depends for its effect on the most vulnerable and helpless, abandoned babies, say, or the terminally ill, who supply the occasions for charity and the raw material for demonstrations of compassion.
The first day I was there, when I finished working in the women's ward, I went and waited on the edge of the men's ward for my boyfriend, who was looking after a boy of 15 who was dying. And an American doctor told me that she had been trying to treat this boy and that he had a really relatively simple kidney complaint that had simply got worse and worse and worse because he hadn't had antibiotics, and he actually needed an operation. I don't recall what the problem was, she did tell me. And she was so angry, but also very resigned, which so many people become in that situation. She said, well, they won't take him to hospital. And I said, why? All you have to do is get a cab, take him to the nearest hospital, demand that he has treatment, get him an operation. She said, they don't do it. They won't do it. If they do it for one, they do it for everybody. And I thought, but this kid's 15.
I ventured on my own pilgrimage to the Missionaries of Charity in Calcutta in early 1980. Who could fail to be touched by the work of the orphanage? Not I, though I did find myself a little put off by the mission's motto, he that loveth correction, loveth knowledge. Bit of a workhouse ring to that, perhaps. But it was Mother Teresa herself who completed the wreckage of the effect. As we stood by the tiny cots, she turned and said, this is how we fight abortion and contraception in Calcutta. Now, it might be argued that a campaign against family planning is low on the list of Calcutta's many pressing needs. But as a leading member of the Pope's fundamentalist tendency on matters of sex and procreation, Mother Teresa has made this single issue into her global crusade.
The greatest destroyer of peace today is the cry of the innocent, unborn child. If a mother can murder her own child in her own womb, what is left for you and for me to kill each other?
Tenderness about the unborn is an emotion that I share myself. But tenderness about the unborn also becomes an overtly political matter when it's preached by a presumable virgin who also campaigns against birth control.
Let us promise Our Lady, who loves Ireland so much, that we will never allow in this country a single abortion. And no contraceptives.
Mother Teresa has no politics, so she maintains, and so many people believe. But when she came to London in 1988, ostensibly as an advocate for the homeless, she bent the ear of the Iron Lady and sought to steer her to the support of a bill limiting abortion. The sponsors of that bill, who arranged the meeting, were in no doubt that her intervention was political.
She's not a party political figure, but she's a political figure in the sense that A, she is part of what may be called the Catholic agenda, the broader Christian right agenda, and the Catholic Church has been following what has generally been considered a hard-line approach under the present Pope. Now, she's part of that agenda, and that is fairly political agenda. I mean, you know, no abortion, opposition to birth control, ideas like that are fairly, you could say they would be contested in the political arena. And the second factor is that she's also part, if you like, of the Western agenda, where the West is still part of the third world.
The rich world has a poor conscience. It wants, in fact it needs, to think that someone, somewhere, is doing something about the third world. And the Mother Teresa myth ministers to this desire.
Here is a Western woman who has forsaken her life, albeit whatever life she might have had in Albania, you know, for sacrifice herself for the people of the third world. It makes the West feel better, you know. This is one of us again, once again rescuing the third world.
Yes, raising them.
He's got his rations.
Yes, he's got it, he's cleaning it. And then PATRON.
In the subliminal appeal that she generates, there is something of the mission to the heathen, something of the old colonial outpost, and something of Florence Nightingale. While in the silent and abject demeanour of her patients, there is something of the deserving poor. The great white hope in this iconography takes on the big black hole. And the rewards are by no means all in heaven. For someone whose kingdom is not of this earth, Mother Teresa has an easy way with thrones, dominions and powers. Why do the rulers of this sinful and selfish world find her so awfully congenial? Is it because she returns the compliment? She may or may not comfort the afflicted, but she has certainly never been known to afflict the comfortable. Some people see her here, posing with Ron and Nancy.
Truest sense, citizens of the world. Mother Teresa is.
The very hand that bestowed the Medal of Freedom on Mother Teresa armed and paid the death squads of Central America. Accepting the award with her customary modesty on behalf of all the world's poor, she croaked, "I never realized that you loved the people so tenderly." I must say, I hadn't noticed that either. Reagan's proxies murdered, among many others, 4 American nuns and the Catholic Archbishop of San Salvador at the very moment that he was celebrating Mass. But, visiting the slaughterhouse states of the region during that period, Mother Teresa found nothing untoward. Everything was peaceful in the parts of the country we visited, she claimed, after touring the killing fields of Guatemala, adding for good measure, "I do not get involved in that sort of politics." In 1984, a ghastly chemical spill from the Union Carbide plant in the Indian town of Bhopal took 2,500 lives and poisoned thousands more. This was an act not of God, but of a negligent multinational corporation. Mother Teresa's advice to the angry victims?
Forgive. Forgive.
What Mother Teresa has done is she has accepted implicitly the idea that there's nothing much you can do for the poor except take them off the streets and, you know, look after them. You cannot change their attitudes. You cannot make them feel that they have an ability, they may even have the means to improve and change their lives. She's not bothered with that agenda. She's only bothered with the agenda of trying to rescue their souls and make them a bit better before they go on to the eternal life, which is a very understandable, but in fact a very old-fashioned Christian ideas. It is not a question of saying, how can we tackle the real problems of poverty?
Like most people who claim to be apolitical, Mother Teresa is in practice and in theory an ally of the status quo, and when the status quo is threatened, a trusted ally of the conservative forces. This places her in bold contrast to those, even among the religious, who have rejected the fatalistic and submissive conclusions about poverty that are promulgated by Catholic traditionalists like her.
With our hands, with our life, with our love, we ask justice, we ask freedom, and we take justice, because the justice is not like a gift which they give. No, liberty, freedom, they don't give that. We have to take that. And in fact, we go through the streets and we took our liberty, we took our freedom, asking for justice.
The Roman Catholic hierarchy has never forgiven Father Aristide, the legally elected president of Haiti, whom it regards as a base heretic. For his efforts to chase the moneylenders from the temple, he was banished from his order and forbidden to serve Mass. To the very last, the Vatican was the only foreign power to recognize the military junta that misruled Haiti. And the ground for this too was prepared by Mother Teresa. In 1980, she visited the island and accepted the Haitian Legion of Honor Award from Baby Doc Duvalier. She found much to praise in his corrupt, dynastic regime, telling astonished reporters that she had, quote, never seen the poor people being so familiar with their head of state as they were with the Duvaliers. It was a beautiful lesson for me, she simpered. I have learned something from it. The Haitian people, indeed, could not wait to get close to the Duvaliers, who in their turn moved forever to the French Riviera. Mother Teresa admires the strength of the powerful almost as highly as she recommends the resignation of the poor. When she visited her motherland of Albania, she appeared to take seriously St. Paul's notorious assertion that the powers that be are ordained of God. The Albanian authorities had proclaimed the world's first officially atheist state. They had persecuted all forms of worship except that of their leader, Enver Hoxha. No whit abashed, Mother Teresa laid a bouquet on Hoxha's tomb. Not content with honouring a Stalinist murderer and despot, she also bestowed a wreath on the monument of Greater Albania, a cause that was once smiled upon by Pope Pius IX and his friend Benito Mussolini. Albania is, for secular reasons, quite rich in orphans. So there was ample scope for an orphanage specialist to praise the institutions of the regime while keeping silent about its victims. If it sometimes seems that the Saint of Calcutta is never actually in Calcutta at all, this may be because she operates more as the roving ambassador of a highly politicized papacy. Vatican foreign policy has taken her from the shores of Lebanon, where the Roman Catholic militia perpetrated the mass murder of the Sabra and Shatila camps, to Nicaragua, where the Cardinal was the patron of the Contras, to Armenia, where she helped Mother Church gain a foothold in the Soviet Union. In return, the present Pope is known to have placed her on the fast track for canonization. This is the kind of politics in which she does indeed get involved. Robert Maxwell's genius for self-promotion made a nice fit with Mother Teresa's talent for fundraising. It became hard to decide which of the two was using which, or was it both? In the United States, Mother Teresa accepted well over $1 million from Mr. Charles Keating, a right-wing Catholic fundamentalist and anti-pornography crusader who was also California's savings and loan tycoon. Mr. Keating's problem was that he was using other people's money. He's now behind bars after the greatest scandal in American financial history. But while he was flying high, Mother Teresa flew right along with him. She got the use of his private plane. He got a personalized Mother Teresa crucifix, which he used to store up treasure on earth.
Let's get her out of here.
Why should the missionaries of charity have such a special vocation for work among the rich? And does Mother Teresa pick frauds because they need her help more than the honest billionaires? It's not a question that she's ever answered, but then, in the prevailing atmosphere of piety and adoration, it's not a question that she's ever been asked. The Teresa cult is now a missionary multinational, with annual turnover in the tens of millions. If concentrated in Calcutta, that could certainly support a large hospital, and perhaps even make a noticeable difference. But Mother Teresa has chosen instead to spread her franchise very thinly. To her, the convent and the catechism matter more than the clinic.
Now we are in 105 countries and we have 500 convents all around the world, without counting India. Beautiful.
Yeah, there's a little bump in the video here.
Modesty, simplicity, humility. By these canonical keywords, we are taught that we may recognize saints. Yet Mother Teresa regards herself as mandated by heaven, which is hardly modest. She lends spiritual solace to dictators and to wealthy exploiters, which is scarcely the essence of simplicity. And she preaches surrender and prostration to the poor, which a truly humble person would barely have the nerve to do. When she speaks about private or public morality, opposing family planning, for example, or defining abortion as quite literally the greatest threat to world peace, she takes on the grim and tedious tones of the zealot and the fanatic. In a godless and cynical age, it may be inevitable that people will seek to praise the self-effacing, the altruistic, and the pure in heart. But only a complete collapse of our critical faculties can explain the illusion that such a person is manifested in the shape of a demagogue, an obscurantist, and a servant of earthly powers.
Okay, I'm doing some detail around here, and it's the same thing, just keep on touching it. There is some cloth, piece of maybe a little bit a velvet thing falling down behind these leaves. Actually, there are some small leaves here that I have to work with. Then again, I have to kind of get the right color on the right blue on that velvet thing. I think it was that was on a birthday present thing that just hung on my wall, and it kind of shines in it in a, nice way. A velvet kind of nice way. and it's kind of reddish in here and bluish, bluish greenish, and I have to work to get it right. I have to find the right directions and the color at the same time. What I basically do is work from it like this. First I sketch it, then I start working kind of sideways to differentiate the textures and the directions. So kind of the directions of the pencil strokes are defining more and more the room. It's a tedious process. It takes a while when you get into detail, but then the pleasure of it comes back. You go deeper and you solve the big problems. Like this eye is too dark, I have to maybe print some more new photos and get more information. But you see, I just got it to fall into place here. And there's a lot of pleasure in it. There's so many things that makes me calm down. Actually, sitting in airports is one of the things that makes me calm down. People watching, traveling, going from one place to another, painting, dance, stuff like that, training. But painting is the thing that really stabilizes my brain. And even if you're not gonna make a living, I would recommend finding something you love. Can be anything. A former friend of mine, he fell in love with making aquariums. He found ways to let the stones fall in to the aquarium to create these natural habitats for the fish. So it should look like it was done by nature, and that is actually how nature does it, or the universe does it. I mean, every time the universe gravity touches something, places something, it can be a grain of sand or a wave or anything. It just keeps on creating these beautiful patterns. It's actually called chaos theory, and if you understand that, you can actually create quite nice things. It's like a painting. You have to work with a painting until it reminds you of a piece of wood you have thrown into the sea, and if you could find the same piece again, it would be a beautiful artwork. Made by gravity and chaos theory. And That is what I'm doing. You know, every time I correct something, every time I have to do things again, it creates some unconscious patterns, and every time I touch it with my own say subjective me, subjective subjective okay, can't find the word, subjective touch or whatever. And all these touches, every time I touch, it kind of creates a trace of my subjectivity on the canvas. And that is why time, I think anyway, time is very important to create a good painting. And skill. Of course, skill is extremely important. If you don't understand colors, shape, on the intuitive level, you can actually get the knowledge, but you won't be able to do it until you have trained skill. You can't think the colors onto the canvas. You can only put them there. So it's all a subconscious process. Even when I'm speaking, parts of my brain is, I'm speaking, but one part is kind of just working on a different level. That is because my it's nice. My the brain that is for language doesn't intervene that much with the brain who is doing the visual stuff. So I can actually do two things at the same time. I can listen to stuff and I can speak, but I wouldn't be able to do any other task that demands my visual part of my brain's attention. Then again, if we're going to go into a deep flow, deep flow, then I have to just have music and stuff. I have to kind of, some parts of my brain just have to go into this dance. That is exactly what I'm going to do now. Yeah. Yeah. Starting to reach the end. I'm doing what I call extreme detail. It's really time consuming, and it is basically to sew together all the different nuances. And what I do is that I go in and let the colors kind of cross over each other and pulling them down, putting them down, bringing them up, It's a very time-consuming process. So you have to kind of, and here's a with swine brush comes in because it creates some kind of woolly feeling in the texture when you work like this. Kind of cross work in directions and try to find the right direction with the colors to give it the right sense of room, space, depth. I do not like when it becomes too flat. So I like to give every part of the painting a texture, even if it's all down into the room, or even if it's subtle, very subtle. So then you get this feeling that it's actually real. It's hard to explain, you just have to try to do it. Yeah. What has been a problem in this painting is that I don't see much of the eye in the photo I use, so I have to figure out a way to bring that out. And the yellow is very difficult because it's a very strong color that is hard to kind of keep down. So see, I just work slowly, steadily, trying to find the right texture. And then in the light behind there, I make it a little bit more 3D, like if it were clay, I would just, if it was a relief with clay, I would kind of put on some color there that comes a little bit longer out than the dark part. That gives it and when that light hits it, it kind of hits that one first and it pulls in the darkness, the dark part. Kind of keep on pushing it. I don't want my paintings to be kind of photographic and just one plain texture, but to give it some more life, I like to use different textures and different to kind of bring it to life. It's hard to explain in English, especially when I'm talking to my hand. I'm talking, I actually like having dialogues because They are triggers for deeper thinking. Every time you go over a painting, if you're painting like this, you will always be able to become a little bit better, a little bit stronger, a little bit more defined. And the more you touch it, the more of you will put into it. So I find it really interesting to keep on working on this, on the paintings, until they are really coming out of the motif is coming out of the canvas. There's some point of light there, and there is some point of light down here. Is probably so it kind of brings it up. So, okay. So, I'm doing the hand, and I'm trying to make it become a little bit natural, so I have to keep on kind of crossing over the colors. I kind of drag them like this. I don't do like this because that just makes a line. I kind of go in and mold them together. It's a time-consuming process, as I've said 100 times, but it's worth it because you get a more subtle. First I have made it kind of wet with the oil and colors, lasur, but just put some oil on it and start molding it, and then when I paint it for a while, it kind of, the oil is getting into the color automatically, and then I can start doing stuff like this. The typical thing that people do is kind of making things too light. When you see some light, they just pour on white and stuff, and it's not really the way to go, because usually the nuances, you have to look at the brightest part and keep everything down in a way to make the shadows, and yeah. Like here I did it too light here, so I just need to kind of put it down a little bit. And over here too. And this is just details. When you get into this level, it starts to take some time, but it's also, if you're up to it, it's very nice because you get into this deep deep flow. Of course, not when I'm talking now, but when I'm working. I'm not having the camera on. It's much easier to get deeper into stuff. And it's a beautiful feeling that I recommend any amateur. You don't need to become a full-time artist. It's just a good way to relax. And I mean, I'm a quite ambitious person when it comes to what I want to achieve in my paintings, the level of aesthetics. But I'm kind of only competing with myself. I'm not competing with any other artists. I'm not envying anyone, or don't feel kind of put down or challenged by people who are better than me. You know, many people who are better than me, and I can learn from it. I can look up to them and stuff. So yeah, and I have developed my own style. So I haven't learned it from anyone. I just started painting when I was like 21. Now I'm 47. So when you don't learn from someone, you just pick it up and you start painting, and you learn from your mistakes. It becomes much more your own expression. You see, now it's kind of, not kind of, I hate that kind of, it is or it isn't. You see, just molding it, kind of, blah blah blah. So I kind of do directions, trying to understand the shapes, and yeah. See, now I put that on, the light comes out, and now start. But it's more than, you have to do it in layers. You can't do everything at once, and you just have to wait until it dries so you can do the same process again. And every time you do it, you get a little bit closer, a little bit closer. Okay, people say, oh, why do you do this? You can do it with a photograph. No, you can't do this with a photograph. A photograph is a photograph. This is a painting. There's a crucial difference. You're interacting. I'm doing photographs, but I wouldn't even come close to compare the difficulty in doing painting and taking photographs. Of course, there are very good photographers out there, but to learn to paint takes much more skill. Especially now when you have the digital cameras. I mean, anyone can buy a camera, even with an iPhone or iPad. I don't mean to put down a photograph, but it's a totally different thing. That is my point. Yes. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. So I just don't fuck it up again. Fucking up is a part of it. See, I've done some mistakes here. I can see this one has to be further out. And here. At least here. Yeah. That's how it's done. You just suddenly realize you fucked up, and you have to. Sometimes you even have it right, and then you fuck it up, and you think, and then you see, oh shit, it was actually how it should be. So just get it back to what it was. What I'm doing now actually was the right shape earlier today. So, okay. There's going to be much more shadows and lights around this, but it has to dry first. Okay. There's some blue here, and I'm going to put on the bluish color. Okay, you see how I work in directions. I don't know how good this video is because the light in this room is quite difficult to work with. Looking forward actually to start working in my bigger rooms because the light is getting more spread out. But I started this painting in this room, so I have to finish it in this room, or I have to do the whole thing again, because a little bit changes in the light you're working in, and you just see different colors, different things that you don't like suddenly. And yeah, well, there's a nail here somewhere. It's actually impressionism in a way. Well, I just leave it at this today. That's and yeah, it's not gonna take long to dry because it's so thin with color. Yeah. I mean, what's underneath is manifested on top anyway. So okay. I mean, you see what's underneath while you paint the light that you see, or the shapes you see. So you don't really need to know what's underneath, you just have to repeat what you see. So a lot of people who, figurative painting, I have to study anatomy and blah blah blah. Well, anatomy is interesting, but you don't need to study anatomy to the anatomy of a tree, or the anatomy of an apple, or whatever, anatomy of anything living to paint it. You just try to repeat what you see. Yes, too much light here now. I have to put it down later, but not now, because I can't stop. That's the problem. Always been my problem. I've never been able to stop in time. Start to ruin it again, and let's do it all over. So stop. Yeah, stop. Yeah. I'm now in the kind of a last phase where I work with what I refer to as extreme detail. Just kind of getting all of it together. This has been a very difficult painting because of the photograph I have used, and because of the lack of information. Actually has been too dark, but I think I'm getting there. Some left and a lot of small adjustments to do, shadows to put into it, getting all the things at the right place, giving shadows, not too much, not too little. That's when you come to the point where you start to use the lasure techniques. You just kind of put the colors on top of things that are already there. Kind of gives it more natural texture, And again, and then you can use your nails, you can use just putting it on and maybe it's a point where you actually start to see really see the wrong things you have done. And what to say? It's so hard. Eyes. Yeah. Kind of get this natural feel to it. I have to say the camera isn't actually picking up the colors right, but I guess I just have to live with it. I can barely see, you know, sort of see the eye in here. So I just have to kind of get that right. And in this painting there are more reddish and some bluish colors, not so much yellow, and more red. And red is a very difficult color to deal with because it can get too warm and then it gets kind of way too warm, and you start to feel like it's almost a little bit kitsch-like, and I hate that. The highlights are quite important. As you see now, you just kind of it just comes out. Then it is all these things, getting the shadows to kind of glide into the light and things behind there. And, that's the thing. It is a commissioned portrait, so it's even when it is a commissioned portrait, you don't feel like you have any leverage at all. You kind of have to really become the person you are supposed to paint. Of course, that's also important. There are other things that you have greater room in other paintings. The most difficult thing I've done is the portrait of a war hero in Norway, and Samuel Steen on the Jewish Norwegian Holocaust survivor. And the Crown Prince were there at the opening. A kind of almost a surreal situation where you're standing there and have to, you feel you've been judged for what you have done, or measured. Or of course, basically I'm my worst critic. I'm my own worst critic, but I'm the kind of person who never actually get actually come to a point where I really think what I've done is good enough. So you have to deal with your low self-esteem every time. But I guess it's a good tool, because if you get too pleased with what you do, you're probably going to stop fighting. So, and it is the fight that are important for to evolve as a painter. I mean, that is everything we do. Just keep looking, keep observing, keep thinking. Don't paint too fast. To get that skin tone feeling, it's kind of, it has to be try to repeat how skin actually works. It's such a hard thing to do. And I like the sculptural part of it. I don't want it to be inside the painting. I want it to come out and say, hey, I'm here. I'm a sculpture. I want to come out of the picture. That's why I keep on pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, almost like I'm making a sculpture. Actually, I wonder why, if I'm going to make some reliefs, just to really go for the shape and form. Really feel it in my fingers. Make some sculptures and stuff. Now to get that shape first, how the nose is, and then I need some color, some reddish, and I cannot go on top of that again, so I cannot, it is kind of, it isn't kind of, you see, now it kind of starts to glide here. I have to make the highlight a little bit smaller to make it more. If you have too much white, too much highlight, it kills it. It's just a spot, small, tiny spot. And there's some bluish around here. Kind of, yeah. I'm using the word kind of a lot, and I hate that word kind of. It doesn't really mean anything. Nothing is kind of. It is or it isn't. And well, it is kind of a boy. Kind of. Anyway, ranting here. Just okay. Maybe get kind of the point, and I have to do the eyes better, and I have to make the eyes the right size because it may be too big. I have to get that small light, just tiny blue light in the photograph. That comes in here somewhere. That gives it life, and that's of course too much, but kind of. Just paints over it, pushes it in, and then I fucked it up. But anyway, that's how I work in the end, really often. And you have to be in good shape to do this. You can't be hungover. You have to lead a healthy life. If you're going to do this sort of detail, you have to be focused. You can't do all the partying and stuff like that. You just have to keep your body and your brain very healthy. Yeah. See the lights come from the side, and it hits his face. It explains the shape of the face, and that's what push it with that. Anyway, I need to focus, so I'm going to turn this off now. Yeah, so I have been doing a touch-up. As you see, I am basically finished with it. And it's been alright. It's very intense. It's intense, intense colors. And yeah, it's been very difficult with them. The yellow. You may want to straighten. It's kind of back and forth. You wind up on in the end. That is the thing with my paintings, that I do go all the way in, and the uncertainty is always present. And that's a good thing. I guess the most annoying thing with doing figurative painting like this is every time you start touching it, you realize that you can always push it a little bit further. Another small detail, surface thing can be more molded. But it has to stop somewhere, and I think I've reached that point now. In this one. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it at this. Let's see the frame on, so I actually see how it is. And yeah, that's something. It's only hard to see. This is a commissioned work, so it always becomes very personal when it's a commission, which makes it even harder. It's like you're drowning in responsibility. Know that the customer is pleased with it, so that makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, that was too much. Just take it with my finger. Maybe, fuck. That's another color into there. This is what happens. You just touch something and you notice that you actually have to go in and correct the surroundings, and this is why a touch-up can actually take many more hours than you actually plan for, because you do some adjustments and suddenly you have to start adjusting everything around the adjustment. So, yeah, it's better. Probably couldn't even see that, but you got the point, I hope. So hard because so dark. It's a very dark photo. So they're all there, things I really can't see. And what do you do when you can't see it? Well, You have to paint it as you see it. Don't add things that aren't there. You're just going to create even more chaos. Just try to observe what is there. Yeah. So, just going to sign it. It's always difficult. Now I have my pencils on dried and the screws it up a little bit. I think I'm going to go dark with this because it's a little bluish down here, so I can go in dark, I guess. So I just sign it K and A, and with my last name is Vikshåland. And I know that many people have, especially English-speaking people, have problems pronouncing my name. So I'm gonna tell you how. It's actually Knut André in Norwegian. Knut André. I've heard in Norway we used to believe in Odin and Thor and his old beautiful gods. And my name is kind of from that time. It is not linked to Christianity, it's linked to the Norrøn mythology. And Knut actually means strong, and André means human. I heard somewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, the name is Strong Human. It's fun. It's fun. At least I'm persistent. I don't give up easily. I never surrender. I just keep going. In 2016. Yeah. Okay. Fucked up the K. It's not typical. Just because I'm not concentrating, I'm talking to you. Okay, so K. So that was too much. Yeah, it was too much. Competes with a flag, so I just have to do it again with something more bluish, I guess. Oh, fuck. Some color. I use some lighter color, some bluish. See how that turns out. Okay. I always stand when I'm painting. It's more dynamic that way, and you don't fuck up your back. Your back is quite important, so, well, that's how I prefer those. Also good. Yes. Okay. Yeah. What do I do? Do I go back? Yeah, I go back, deeper. I've also been training all kinds of martial arts and stuff, particularly karate and taekwondo for many years, and 3 years ago I got this inflation in my hip, so, and I have some issues with my back, so standing or sitting would make that infinitely much worse. So, 2, 0, 16. Ta-da! Okay. Fini. Yeah. Vikshåland. The fuck? Vikshåland. Yeah, I'm also a dyslexic, so a little bit dyslexic, so I tend to misspell things. I was discussing some stuff on Facebook today, and this guy jumped at me, if you do study stuff, why are you spelling so bad? And I told him I didn't think this was a spelling contest, and I guess that's how people is acting when they are out of arguments. I never do that. That would be silly. Okay. It's okay. Can be like that. Knut André Vikshåland 2016. That was Norwegian. Okay. We are finished. Okay, welcome to the end of the video. Here you can see some of the brushwork up close, some of the textures, and as you can see I use a lot of kind of rough brushwork in this, and I just go with the directions and mold it as I was talking about in the video, almost like a sculpture, and that is my ideal, and that is what I love to do. Now, if you want to support my channel, you can go to Patreon and sign up for $1 or $5 or $15 or whatever you like. You can see the instructions there. If you support me, I will help you personally with your evolving your painting skills and engage with you on a personal level. So check out Patreon. I hope to see you there and in the next video.